It's really hard, honestly, to talk about Death Stranding 2 without touching on any aspect of the story and not spoiling anything. But I'm going to try to do it. I'm going to try in today's video to tell you what you need to know about Death Stranding 2. How do you play it? What are the similarities with the first one? What I liked and what I didn't like, without spoiling the story for you. It's very difficult because one of the main motivations to play this game is the story of the game. Because it's a Kojima game, it's a PlayStation game, it's basically a movie game after all. Well, there's a pretty negative detail to mention there, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. We're going to talk at length about Death Stranding 2. And to talk about this video game without spoilers, without giving anything away, not about the story, not about its world, and definitely not anything else. I'm going to use a save file that I made at around 12 or 13 hours into the game. In other words, right at the very beginning of the title. In fact, the save file we're about to see is from the first map of the game, which is indeed Mexico. As you know, in this title, we'll travel through various regions and maps, but I'll let you discover that yourself. For today's analysis, we're going to use the first map, which, by the way, is a pretty short map. And all the gameplay you'll see next was captured on PlayStation 5 Pro. The first thing I want to tell you about Death Stranding 2 is that it's an absolutely continuous video game. Here we do the same thing we did in the first game, which is mainly accepting delivery jobs between 2 or more points. The general game cycle is based on accepting a delivery. Plan a route to make that delivery, pick up the packages that are part of the order, and put them in our backpack or in our vehicle. Make equipment that we might need to defend ourselves or to explore, whether it's ladders, weapons, grenades, etc. Carry that equipment ourselves, so we don't leave it at the base and get going to deliver the order. Like I said, it's an early stage of the game. So the only vehicle we have available for now is this tricycle. Later on, more vehicles will become available. But in general terms, the game cycle is exactly the same. You pick up an order, go and deliver it, and once you finally reach your designated destination, you enter the base where you have to deposit your boxes. You approach the terminal and deliver your cargo based on the condition in which the cargo has arrived. You will get a performance evaluation which will give you certain dialogues from those who receive it, and a score that will allow you to advance in different areas of performance. The more stars you earn in the different bases, the more artifacts and recipes for crafting things will be unlocked for you. And they will even give you more bandwidth for your chiral connection, and they will also assign you a number, a delivery man level.
This is the basic cycle of the game, meaning what you'll be repeating all the time, what you'll do over and over again at all the bases.
With the goal of raising the 5 stars to the maximum and unlocking everything that base can give you. You accept a delivery, plot the route, load the materials onto your vehicle or your back, craft equipment, and set out. Every time you arrive at a base, you'll find new deliveries to take you to another base. Some destinations are harder to reach than others. That's how it goes. You'll find transport missions with more fragile objects and transport missions with objects you can't carry all at once. Heavy, complex, and simple things, and more. At the same time that you're going from point A to point B to deliver your package or your order, you'll find that there are other orders or packages that have been dropped around almost randomly. Many times they match the destinations we're heading to, which inevitably makes us want to reach those boxes to pick them up and add them to our delivery. For example, this box I just found here is for the artist, which is exactly where I'm heading. Now I pick up the package, head to my vehicle, and continue on my way. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, it's just like Death Stranding 1 essentially, except for a few very specific mission exceptions. Very characteristic. The basic gameplay loop is this: go from point A to point B, carrying a package and picking up whatever we come across along the way that might be useful to us. For example, I just came across another package for the artist, which I'm gonna pick up even if it's out of my way to take it along. Since we're at it, most of the destinations during this first stage of the game, That is, the destinations we have to visit in Mexico are easy destinations, easy to access and quick to reach. But later on, in the other locations we'll have to visit, things get a bit more complicated. Could you say that Mexico is in a way the tutorial of the game? I arrived at my destination, activate the terminal, and deliver my order. Once I deliver everything, it will be evaluated based on the condition in which the boxes arrived. And I will be given a score regarding my delivery. In this case, the delivery was perfect. This is the tally of points that I receive, and that's how my ratings go up in this shelter, which allowed me to unlock some new colors, some points that I can distribute among a skill tree that's new now, greater range in the chiral network, and some materials. Obviously, since I'm in this new base, I can open the terminal and accept new orders. Are they going to make me go to the places I've already been to over and over again? If you've played Death Stranding 1, you're familiar with the gameplay loop. It remains consistent throughout the game. That's the charm of the game. You get into this dynamic where you're going to make a 5-minute trip from point A to point B, but along the way you find boxes, deliveries or requests for help, or constructions to build. Or you run into enemies, or something catches your attention and you go look for it. And a 5-minute trip ends up being a 1-hour trip. You end up loaded to the neck with boxes and you juggle to figure out how to organize yourself to deliver them. Everything you obtained from the ground bandits, etc. forms the core gameplay loop. There are a ton of cutscenes that are really great, that tell a super deep story and that develop as you progress with the deliveries. Huge parenthesis. If you like Death Stranding 1, you'll like the second one, that's it. If you didn't like Death Stranding 1, Death Stranding 2 will likely disappoint you even more than the first game, as it builds upon and amplifies everything from its predecessor. Because it has a lot more deliveries, more orders, more cutscenes, and a more complicated story. I said I wasn't going to get into the story of Death Stranding 2, and I'm not going to get into details, not at all. That's why now we're only going to look at trailers for the game, things that everyone has already seen. The story of Death Stranding 2 justifies the story of the first one. It builds on the story of the first and amplifies it. So if you didn't like the story of the first one, you're not going to like this one, because it builds directly on the first. If you didn't grasp the first game's story, you won't comprehend this one's narrative either. I'd recommend going over the first one before getting into this one. And, in fact, I'd recommend to everyone that before playing Death Stranding 2, you play Death Stranding 1, because it really doesn't make sense to play this game without playing the first one. As soon as we start the game, they'll offer us a summary of Death Stranding 1, like a brief recap of what happened in the first game. The problem with this summary is that it's just some slides with text that only make sense if you played the first game, because this is really just a memory aid. Wouldn't it be better to have a proper summary of the first game? As I was saying, what we're looking at here is the map of the Mexican region, or at least the part of Mexico you can unlock in the first 13 hours of the game. Even though it doesn't look very big, it's actually quite large. And compared to the next map, this is only about 10% of it. So you can expect regions that are huge in Death Stranding 2, much bigger than in the previous game. As for the graphics, the game's engine is the same engine as Horizon, the engine from Guerrilla Games. The Decima, a graphics engine that delivers beautiful worlds. Although they might not stand out too much here because the map of Mexico is a bit sandy. It's true that as you progress in the game, you'll see spectacular environments that will leave you speechless. I think this graphics engine is one of the most powerful we have today, and I'd love to show you more advanced environments in the game. But I really don't want to spoil the surprise for you, since in many cases the reveal of these environments is part of the story and narrative of the game. The second important aspect of Death Stranding 2 is the combat, because we are going to encounter them throughout the different maps. Many enemy zones with the mules. Those illegal porters who were in the first game, well, they're also in this second game. And every time we come across a camp of these guys, well, we're going to have to face them in a straight-up shootout. The arsenal we have is quite vast and varied, and we'll be equipping the weapons that we find comfortable for our playstyle. For example, I use the sniper a lot and also a short-range shotgun, which lets me blast enemies in the face with shotgun shots. Like this guy right here, for being nosy, I send him to meet St. Peter. Every time we go into the mule's bases, we'll find loot and items that belong to other bases or delivery points. Once we recover them, we'll be able to deliver them, and the further we get in the game, the harder the combat will become. Because the mules will be more heavily armed and armored, obviously to make the game more challenging and more interesting. The fights, generally speaking, are quite fun, and you can focus on melee combat or ranged combat, or whatever feels comfortable for you. And there's such a variety of weapons that you'll always find one you feel more comfortable with than others. And the environments or world maps are so well designed that you always run into an enemy, some surprise and ambush or something like that. That keeps you alert all the time. Like this one here, who's about to have a few bullets for breakfast. No way.
I'm playing while I'm recording. Oh no, did I run out of bullets? No, for God's sake.
Let's switch weapons. Let's go with the pistol, if I'm not mistaken. Son of a gun, to your house and to my house. Well, it's a grenade launcher and it blew up in my face. The fights, generally speaking, are just what you saw. They're fun when you're loaded with weapons. They're a walk in the park when you're barely prepared or you get surprised or ambushed or something like that. Maybe it gets a little more intense. And what if I messed up a bit in this fight? Please understand that I'm recording and playing at the same time. It's not that easy. In all the Las Mulas camps, we're going to find the stashes where, as I was saying, we find packages that we have to deliver to their recipients. For example, here I have packages for the artist, the one I just went to see. I have some weapons, I have some materials, and other things I can use for crafting. In this case, I'm going to take the resins, the ceramics, and the things for the artist, and I'm going to load them into my backpack. If I'm carrying too much weight, Sam will have a hard time walking and he'll lean to the side and I'll have to balance him by pressing the triggers. Both L2 and R2, another mechanic that was already present in the first game and now is repeated. Ah, this is still Mexico. It's just a jungle that's out there in the middle of the mountains. It's likely the only green area in Mexico. We're going to have to constantly keep an eye on the territory we're crossing, especially the water we go into or the slopes we climb. Because if these surfaces show up in yellow or red, they're dangerous surfaces where we could fall and our cargo could get damaged. Like I was telling you, the condition in which the cargo arrives is essential to determine the score we're going to get, which will allow us to improve our reputation at the different facilities. Just like in Death Stranding 1 and Death Stranding 2. You're going to be able to build structures that you'll use later to make your life easier. Like, for example, I'm going to put an electric vehicle charger in this spot right here. And when I build it, not only will that electric vehicle charger appear on my map, but also this charger will appear on the map of the players who join my world. And if you play Death Stranding 2 with paid online, all the structures you build will be shared with part of your community of friends and PlayStation players, who are also playing the game and also have paid online. This way, just like in the first game, you'll see a lot of structures all across the map that your friends, teammates, or acquaintances from PlayStation build. For example, that bridge you see back there and that charger you see there. I didn't build them, Gotta Fanta built this. Who knows who that is? And this bridge, which is already pretty good, quite affected by the passage of time, was built by him. 666. Obviously, I can give him a few likes. Regarding the game menus, these might actually be the most complicated part, because they're a bit complex to understand. First of all, we have the cargo menu, a menu that lets us drop cargo, arrange it, or even automatically arrange it in the best possible way. Then we have the accessories and weapons menu, which is probably the most complex one, where all the weapons, accessories, consumables, and other items we're carrying are shown. Things like grenades, ladders, rifles, pistols, and everything else are displayed here. Then we have the equipment menu, where we can equip glasses, some hats, gestures, or even exoskeletons to help us walk and carry more things, our boots, and so on. And finally, we have the menu for gestures, greetings, warnings, and other things we can leave along the way. Just like in other video games, for example in From Software games, we can place alerts and messages for other players. Even though I messed up a bit while playing. The combat isn't difficult, it's pretty intuitive, and most weapons have auto-aim or some kind of assistance so you feel like a pro when shooting. At the same time, if suddenly there are weapons that you like and that aren't being effective enough or aren't powerful enough, you can do a lot of missions for the base or for the people who gave you that weapon blueprint so they can upgrade the blueprint and the weapon levels up. Everything in the game can be upgraded, everything is accessible, and eventually you'll end up surpassing it all. Because maybe there's a delivery you can't pick up now because you can't reach it. Later on, they'll give you a weapon that lets you hit the delivery and pull it toward you. Or some enemies that are too far away and you can't defeat them. Then they give you the sniper, or a place you can't access, and later they give you the vehicle to get there. Eventually, all things become accessible and achievable. If you played Death Stranding 1, you'll see that Death Stranding 2 is exactly the same, and that's because it really is exactly the same. With all the good and with all the bad. And by bad, I mean the excess of cutscenes. I really love Hideo Kojima's stories. I love the depth of character development, the actors he chooses. How complex they are. The relationships and the bonds between the characters, I like everything. But if there's something I hate, it's when you take me out of my gameplay loop to show me a cutscene. Of course, just because and a cutscene that's 7 minutes or 8 minutes long, I understand the cinematic approach the game has and I respect it. But there was more than one occasion where I found myself hating the cutscene because I just wanted to keep playing. Simply because I like the gameplay loop I was telling you about. This thing about delivering and picking up orders and getting into a vicious cycle, always picking up little boxes from the ground. I like it. I don't want to be taken out of there. And Kojima keeps insisting on constantly taking you out of the gameplay loop to show you cutscenes. They're good. They tell the story. Okay, I get it. But you don't have to force me out of the gameplay loop. And that's one of my main complaints. During the first 15 hours of gameplay, there were more than 5 times when my game was completely interrupted to show me cutscenes. When all I wanted was to keep delivering packages and shooting at the mules. If there's one thing I can complain about in Death Stranding, it's that they break my gameplay loop, that they don't let me play in peace, at least during the first 15 or 20 hours of the game. And another thing that I'm going to complain about indeed is the repetition in some concepts. Many times you get a mission where they tell you what you have to do through a message, then they tell you again in a cutscene. Then they tell you again when you prepare the mission, then they tell you again when you're doing the mission, and when you finish the mission, they tell you again what you did. I get that reminding players is necessary or they'll forget, but I feel it's overdone. That added to the cutscenes that repeat constantly. Putting the little elevator box, being asked again, where did you find that? How did you find it? How did you get here? There comes a point when you don't want to hear it anymore. The gameplay loop is very addictive. The fact of going from point A to point B, picking up the box, delivering the rest. If you like Stranding, you know you'll like this one, and you know it's addictive and that they keep interrupting you constantly. Conversations or cutscenes can be really annoying. The boss fights are another story, and I really understand why they added this option, which actually exists, that you can skip the boss fights. The game features numerous boss fights, but I won't reveal any details to avoid spoiling the experience for you. But they're not completely well designed. There are fights that feel horribly unfair or just too overwhelming. These are things that make you say, why won't you let me move freely? Why won't you let me fight outside of the tower? It's horrible. And I understand why. Kojima put in the option to skip fights because there are several fights that are really annoying, not because of the difficulty, but because of how they're set up. However, it's a part of the experience as not everything in games is entirely enjoyable. There's always some harder part for us. I still recommend fighting these battles. Even the hardest one can be beaten in 2 or 3 tries. That's why I'm telling you that you can keep leveling up your weapons and getting better equipment each time. There's no real difficulty in the final bosses. Without delving into the plot or story, which I'm thoroughly enjoying, I think Death Stranding 2 is a solid 10 for anyone who liked Death Stranding 1, but it's a solid 3 for anyone who didn't like Death Stranding 1. Because if you didn't like the first one, there's nothing for you to do in this game. As I was saying, it's the first one, but bigger and much more beautiful. Graphically, it's spectacular, but is it just the first one already? I get why the press and many people gave it a 10. If you enjoyed the first one, this sequel is spectacular. And I also understand the complaints from many users who say it's boring. Because suddenly, it's the only truly interesting mechanic it has. It's all about connections, deliveries, and related matters. You don't like it? Well, the game is a mediocre shooter, it's a long story, it's a very dense movie-like game. Without the delivery mechanic, I can see why some might find the game boring. I still insist that Death Stranding is like olives or anchovies. Either you like them and love them, or you hate them and can't stand them. Well, let me know in the comments which side you're on. Are you one of those who likes Death Stranding and loves it, or do you hate it and can't stand it? There will likely only be strong opinions on this. Personally, I love it, and Death Stranding 2 is very appealing to me. And my final recommendation is, if you like the first one, buy the second one. It's awesome and it's huge. Yeah, if you dislike the first game, avoid the second. If you haven't played the first, don't buy the second. It's illogical. Complete the first one before starting the second. No rush. Kojima will release the director's cut in a year or two, and the game will be much better. So there's no rush. Well, I hope you liked the video, I hope you learned how to play, and I hope some of your questions were answered. If you have additional questions, post them below. I'll answer them all. Bye.